Hey everybody, this is Darren Spader again, Bay Area News Group, Mercury News, East Bay Times here with Christian Babcock, Nathan Canelau, and Joseph Dicus. We're at full strength, sort of, tonight, maybe not. Joseph is still a little under the weather, but
I'm like 70% of my normal self. Okay.
He's back. It's Nathan and I flew solo, or sort of solo. We were the duo last night, but now we have everybody here. We were at soccer with Christian, covering two Division I CCS semifinal games, and Joseph and I were on the desk and like scores and roundups and stuff. And Nathan was at Doherty Valley, where Doherty Valley took care of business, beat Clayton Valley tonight to reach an NCS final for the fourth consecutive season. We were talking a little bit about this off air. Quite an achievement for Doherty. Granted, I mean, they would have preferred being in the open division this year. They didn't make it. So 3 of the 4 years that they made a final, it was in Division I. They did win the open division. I believe they are the only public school to win an open division championship when they beat De La Salle with their with Doherty Valley's great team 2 years ago. So, Nathan, I know it's a big win for Doherty. Where do you think this? I mean, 4 straight finals. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze about. I mean, that's a heck of an accomplishment for a public school. But where does this rank? I mean, we're an open champ, so you can't say they've never made the open. They won the open division, but the 3 other years they were in Division I.
Yeah, I think this puts them on the way, right? And it's still a really big accomplishment from what they were. I graduated in 2019. I saw what they used to be. They used to be kind of just like this tough out team. Like, hey, you probably don't want to see them in the first round, but you'll probably, if you're an elite team, you'll beat them. Now they've become a team where they're getting transfers, they're getting guys into that program, and they probably should have been an open team, but they were dealt the cards they were dealt. And they're in Division I. They've made it to 4 straight NCS title games. I think they're certainly on their way to becoming one of the more elite programs in the Bay Area. I talked to Mike Hansen after the game, very emotional Mike Hansen. He was harking back on what this program used to be. I believe the first year he had the team in 2008, he had 3 wins. And now they're getting
right. He took that team. They had just opened that school. He's the only coach they've ever had, right?
Yeah, he's an institution now at Doherty Valley. He's never left. He's been there. He's a teacher there still. I think for him it was a very emotional night, especially because they did lose in 22 in the I believe in the Division I. Was it Division I?
They lost in Division I final. I was at that game. It was coming off the pandemic, and it was at home against Clayton, and Clayton Valley beat them. And then the next year, it was an all-time great Doherty Valley team that ended up winning NCS Open Division over De La Salle in a game at St. Mary's College, which was jam-packed that night. It was one of the great scenes, maybe in NCS history, to see Doherty Valley beat De La Salle in the Open Division final that year. And then last year, they beat their rival Dublin at Dublin for the NCS Division I championship. So, 3 trips to a final, and now they're going to be playing Redwood on is that Saturday? Do we know the
Saturday, right?
Yeah,
Saturday. It'll be at Livermore High. We do not know a time yet. I think we need to probably wait for Wednesdays. I would like to think after Wednesday we wouldn't know a time, but one thing I'll say about this is, like, Mike has won obviously with the Beasley crew. Him and one of the Sevilla brothers. They were an elite duo. He's won it with a rebuilding, what we thought was a rebuilding year last year.
Last year was amazing. They won it. I mean,
shout out to Adi Malali.
Adi Malali was a leading scorer. I think Chris Falgren was on that team. Like he's won it now in different variations, and now with the Stokes, Cloud, Rashad Cotton era, this is like kind of back to that elite group. But then they've also had a lot of turmoil this year, in just what they've had to deal with the transfer rules. So he's kind of won it in a lot of ways, and I think that makes him one of the top. Reason why I think he's one of the top coaches here in the Bay Area.
Oh, no doubt about that. And to win it this year when when things didn't go their way the last weekend of the season. I mean, to get hammered by De La Salle and then the next day to find out that they weren't in the Open, when everybody here on this panel I know believed that they were one of the top 6 teams in the NCS, to not get in. And then in Division One now, their backs were against the wall in the first 2 rounds. They had to win or their season was over, and then they had to win tonight to make it to the final. Although, you know, with the 3rd place game, Clayton will get a shot against Amador, right?
Mhm.
For a shot to make it to NorCal's. Joseph, you talked. Let's switch gears a little bit. In the CCS, we had Los Gatos at home tonight against Homestead.
Yep.
Homestead had a really, really nice record coming into the game, but I assume we all figured Los Gatos would get out of there with a win, but that wasn't the case. You talked to the Homestead coach. How excited was he that his team is moving on to the CCS semifinals in D1 after stunning Gatos?
He was excited. He was also very hungry. He was calling me from was it either BJ's or In-N-Out to get a burger with some of his coaches. So that he was excited. He told me that the key to that game was Los Gatos was 12 of 16 from the free throw line, and that Will Hamburger was 14 of 18 by himself for Homestead.
So they got to the line quite a bit.
They got to the line. They made their free throws. Playing in that raucous Los Gatos gym did not faze them whatsoever. As people probably know or may know, they made it to a CCS final about 4 years ago
against Piedmont Hills.
Piedmont Hills. So this is a program that has had success before. This is not the first time they made a run like this. Shout out to them, and also shout out to the Westmont girls, Chris Babcock's alma mater. They stunned number
Christian
1.
Babcock. Chris Babcock is on the NorCal TV.
Yes, Christian.
Our guy is Christian Babcock, right?
Okay. I had to write a story about Monte Vista's new football coach, so I guess Chris Babcock was on the mind. But Westmont girls, number 9 seed in Division 2, they take down number 1 Hillsdale. You want to talk about a team that plays defense? Westmont has not given up more than 57 points in any game this season.
Woo! Another team that plays defense, Carlmont. We talked about this before the game. They held Santa Teresa's high-powered offense to 49, Nathan, in a win.
That's impressive. If you could hold Santa Teresa under 50, that's quite an accomplishment. Win or lose, that's quite an accomplishment.
That was quite an accomplishment for Carlmont tonight. Back to the NCS. I mean, we had a couple of amazing games at Clayton Valley, where the Clayton Valley girls also fell in the Division One semifinals, losing tonight at home in double overtime to California. Clayton got on them early. Clayton was up 10 after the first quarter, but then the game had a lot of ebbs and flows the rest of the way. Goes to double overtime. Clayton had a chance to possibly win it at the end of the first OT. Made one of 2 free throws to tie the score. If they had made both, they would have probably won, but made one of 2 to force the second overtime, and then it was all California in the second OT, with the Grizzlies outscoring Clayton 12-0 in the second overtime period. So big win for California. We got to give a tip of the cap not only to the Doherty Valley boys, but also the Doherty Valley girls, who went on the road. And by going on the road, I mean the road. They went up 101. How far did they go, Nathan?
5 hours. 5 hours to Eureka. And
300 miles. 300 miles.
300 miles. Yeah, 300 miles up the coast. I just got off the phone with Chris Burko, their head coach. They stayed the night last night. I'm assuming those kids are going to get some unexcused absence tomorrow because they're driving back home tonight. They played a really good game. According to them, it was I think a 47-45 game. It was a packed house in a small gym up there in Eureka, and they came out with a win. That's a tough environment to play without playing out with guests. So that was a big win for them, and they get St. Mary's for their Division III title game.
Yes, I mean, if you're going to make that trip, you definitely want to come home with a W. If you're going to make that 5-hour trip. Joseph, what's up?
I want to say too, on the completely other end of the spectrum, Sacred Heart Prep went, across the road, or not even across the road, maybe it's just on the other side of the yard, to Menlo School, and they beat Menlo School 73-68, and I believe it was boys Division 4.
Okay. Yeah, that was a long walk for them.
Long walk. Oh
You
my
can
goodness.
you can literally walk to
You
the.
think they'll get an excused absence from school tomorrow?
I don't, maybe their feet hurt or something. Maybe they can get it through there. I don't know if they're going to get the same type of treatment that the Doherty girls will.
Yeah.
All right, we got open division games tomorrow in the NCS and the CCS, where pool play will wrap up in CCS. We talked about that a little bit last night. But before we wrap up our recap show tonight, let's get to Christian Babcock, who has the pulse of what happened tonight in soccer. Christian, your alma mater, they gave it their best, right, against Bellarmine?
Yes. Thank you, Joseph, for engaging one of my greatest pet peeves when people nickname me Chris without asking first. So thank you for that. That aside, I did go to Bellarmine tonight, and so did the Westmont boys, and they put up a valiant effort. But that Bellarmine team is for real. They scored in the 8th minute and then again in the 75th, and they won 2-0. So they will be returning to the CCS Division I title game for the first time in a couple years. Had a good talk with their coach, Connor Salcido, about just, what it means for the program to get back there. They had a tough year last year with a losing record. I think, as far as I could tell, they didn't even make the playoffs. So quite a turnaround for them. And they have definitely earned the number 1 ranking, which I can, spoiler alert, tell you they will retain in tomorrow's boys soccer rankings. I moved them up early in the year when they had some impressive results against Midi and St. Francis, who I think I had in the top 2 to start out. And they've just really been on a tear. They haven't really been losing. They've been playing great competition in the WCAL, and they are set up to win this title. So we'll see if they get it done. But they are a very good team over there.
Although they will be tested on Friday night at Santa Clara U, where they're going to be facing Everett Alvarez, which I believe Everett Alvarez does not have a loss on the season. Can you guys confirm that?
I don't believe they do. Were they
20-0-2 maybe? That
is crazy.
Yes, 20-0-2, where Everett Alvarez played at Mountain View tonight to a 1-1 draw, and they went to PKs, and Everett Alvarez prevailed 5-4. It was 4-4. Mountain View missed its shot, and Everett Alvarez's final shot of the PK session went in.
That's a tough way to lose a game.
And they erupted there on Mountain View's home field as they go back to Salinas, right? For Everett Alvarez.
Yep.
They go back to Salinas, knowing that they're going to be returning to Santa Clara U on Friday night to face Bellarmine. So shout out to them for the big win. Also, shout out to Nathan's alma mater. They got it done on the soccer pitch tonight over our former colleague Jesus Cano's Pittsburgh Pirates.
Yep.
I did see that, and I saw they were on live, and everybody was screaming. So I instantly knew they had to have won in some crazy way. I don't have many details from that game, but shout out to Granada for making it happen.
PKs as well. One, I think it was the exact same score line that we saw at Mountain View, where I believe it was 1-1. Let's double check that. 1-1, and Granada wins 5-4 on PKs. So the exact same thing. Christian, you were also at the girls D1, or at least one of the 2 semifinals, where Midi took care of business on its home field against St. Ignatius, right?
Yeah, they took about as long as they could. I heard the ref say they scored their goal with 5 minutes or 5 seconds left in regulation. There would have been some stoppage time, but they were pretty dominant. JT Hanley, their head coach, told me they had a 19-1 advantage in shots on goal. SI definitely had more than one shot. A few of them were just a little off target, but Midi was definitely dominating that game. They just could not get the ball to go in the back of the net, and they took as long as they possibly could. JT had a good quote about how it was not good for their cardiac health, but they were able to get it done in regulation just barely, which everyone there was very grateful for except SI fans. And I was certainly grateful because it meant I didn't have to go through extra time and penalty kicks, which seemed to be kind of the rule of the day. And then I was able to get a little dinner and rest before heading over to Bellarmine. So nice job, Mitty. And SI should be very proud of themselves. They had a great win over Lee on Saturday, and they really played Mitty tough today. A few things go their way. They could have won that game. So they are a program on the rise, I would say. And they have a lot to be proud of as well.
I do feel like when it comes to high school playoff soccer, that there's like some sort of unwritten rule that if you're playing at a high level, you can't win a game by any score other than 1-0, 0-0 in penalty kicks, or 1-1 in penalty kicks. Like every playoff game has to be low scoring, defensively dominated, and you can't score more than 2 combined goals.
Well, Bellarmine did something that I've seen a lot of teams get close to doing but not do, which is get an insurance goal. I mean, Mitty almost got a second. SI almost got a second and a third against Lee on Saturday. So, yeah, these are tight games, a lot of late scoring. And, it gets exciting because, I mean, you could tell at Mitty as that game got later and later, the urgency was ticking up. So it was a great atmosphere there.
So should we give a tip of the cap to the SI goalie or the SI defenders for if they took 19 shots on goal and only 1 went through? That's a pretty good percentage of saves.
Both, but I got to give credit. I'm going to get the name right here because I just wrote it down. SI goalkeeper Maddie Lund, I believe it is. So if that math adds up, 18 saves, great performance for her. JT said it was one of the best performances he's seen in his career, which stretches back a ways. He said he didn't want to date himself, but it's been a while. So
it's been a while, and he also coached the Bishop O'Dowd before Mitty, so he goes way back.
Chris, I got one quick question for you. Was SI pretty much sitting back in a low block, just kind of letting them go in, and no?
I would not say so. I mean, when JT gave me 19-1, I was a little surprised. Like I said, SI had a fair amount of shots that were off target. There were a few times where the Mitty goalies kind of misplayed some balls in the back, and those could have led to SI goals. So, I mean, SI could have won this game. Mitty was definitely the team that was in control for the majority of the match, but it was exciting. It was not a match where you just felt like it was a foregone conclusion that Mitty was going to win. Both teams really brought their best to the table.
So now we get another Mitty St. Francis championship on Friday night at Santa Clara U. Nathan, you covered that game last year, right? Mitty St. Francis, or
I did, yeah, and it was
Francis won, right? Last year in CCS
won. Yeah, I believe it was like 2-1 or 2-0. It was
and then Mitty came back and got him the following just a few days later in NorCal's, and then Mitty went on to win the NorCal Division I title. So these teams go back and forth. I know they've been 1-2 in Christian's rankings all year. So you're going to have quite a doubleheader at Santa Clara U on Friday night.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I think if I remember correctly, Mitty got St. Francis 1-0 at home this year, and then they went to St. Francis and lost 4-0. Talked to JT a little bit about that. He said they made 4 mistakes, and they all ended up in the back of the net. So we might see that match 2 more times. I would not be shocked. And, it's just kind of a seesaw depending on who really brings their best that day. So we'll see.
So you're looking forward to both of those matches on Friday night?
Yeah, I am. I know Everett Alvarez is going to bring a lot to the table, but I think this Bellarmine team is pretty special. They got a lot of very good players. So some really high-level soccer tonight and this afternoon, and I think we're going to have a lot more of it on Friday.
I watched the end of the Everett Alvarez Mountain View match tonight, and it sounded like Everett Alvarez had a crowd at Mountain View. My guess it'll be twice as large at Santa Clara U on Friday night. That should be electric with Bellarmine's fans coming from right down the road. It should be a fun night of soccer. That's what do we call it now? It's not Buckshaw Stadium. It's Stevens Field or Stevens Stadium.
I think they call it Buckshaw Field at Stevens Stadium.
Hey, there you go.
Yep, we got to get all the names in there, all the sponsors.
I was gonna say, is Stevens is that a brand or is that just a person.
That's a name.
That's a donor.
That's
Okay.
a
I
donor.
can guarantee you that's a donor.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Also, before we go, I would like just to point out that the OAL is playing their championships tomorrow. It's going to be Oakland versus Oakland Tech and the boys for like the 10th year in a row, or however many years it seems to have been. Consistently, they're the two best teams. Me and Nathan, I think, may have talked about it. Did we talk about it was it Saturday or Friday? We're like, oh, maybe Fremont can make some noise.
Yeah.
They did not.
Yeah, they did not. This is like the Fast and Furious movies at this point. It's like there's like just 10 of them, and they're all like pretty much the same, but a little bit different outcomes and a couple cliffhangers. But that should be a good one. I do want to shout out Alhambra. They're playing at Kezar on Friday for the Division 5 championship. They struggled mightily in the DAL, but now I think they're getting the last laugh. I think they are the only DAL team going to be represented, I think, in the NCS on the boys' side. So
I wonder how the DAL feels about that. It's
oh man, I think
it's competitive equity at its finest right there, where Alhambra struggles in the DAL, makes the playoffs, gets put in D5, and makes a run all the way to the final.
and they are playing at probably one of the nicest gyms in the Bay Area at Kezar, a great environment. It's gonna be. I think it's gonna be awesome for them. And if they pull out a win, man, that'd be something. They're
going to NorCal.
Oh yeah, and they're going to NorCal, which is crazy. They'll probably be in like Division 5 or 6 in NorCal, and that's even more insane. So yeah, I'll give them.
You know what? I know a lot of people rail a bit against competitive equity, as we all have, but you've got to admit that Alhambra making NorCal, it's probably pretty fun for Alhambra, right? I mean.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
I mean, if I think about the ills of competitive equity, a school like Alhambra making NorCal is not one of the reasons I would use to argue against it.
The city of Martinez is going wild. So
shout out to our boy Jose Fajardo. That's his town.
Just to be exact, they came into the playoffs 2 games under 500 and were 4-8 in the DAL. Came in 9th in the Diablo League. And now they are playing for an NCS title, the only DAL team to do that. So
there you go. Check us out tomorrow. We got open division games, CCS and NCS. Salesian and De La Salle back on the court. Where De La Salle
forgot that those teams existed.
Yeah, De La Salle will be at home against Dublin, and Salesian will be at Albany High, close to its home, to face San Ramon Valley. Christian's going to be at Pinewood tomorrow to see them play Prairie. On the girls' side, Mitty will be at home against Reardon. We got Reardon boys playing Valley Christian. Valley Christian pulls out the shocker of all shockers. Valley Christian will be at Santa Clara U on Friday night. Anybody laughing yet? No.
If Valley Christian pulls off the upset, what crazy thing should I do if that actually happens?
I think you should
pour blue and white paint over the top of your head during the show next week.
I live in an apartment that I rent. I don't think the landlord would appreciate that very much.
I think you got to get like a Valley Christian, a VC tattoo, maybe a temporary one or something. You got to get something on your face.
There you go.
I might do that. I'll sharpen.
All right. We're through with this late night show. Thanks, guys. Check us out, mercurynews.com, eastbaytimes.com.